Hola, this is the Getting to Ramen podcast, and I'm Joshua Anderson. Hey, it's me. It's Josh. I'm here. I'm still alive. That's not very funny nowadays. Man, obviously the first thing I want to talk about when I get on here is COVID, which is what everyone is talking about, of course. Every podcast you're listening to is addressing it in some way. And it's funny because it's like, I feel like we aren't just talking about it because it's what's current. It's also a form of therapy for anyone that has a show, has a podcast or a blog or, a YouTube channel or whatever. We're all dealing with this. We're all processing this. And so we're going to get on here and we're going to talk about it because we're trying to figure out what we feel. And I've heard a lot of people talk about this kind of low-level anxiety that they feel whenever they go out in public, no matter what they're doing. And I totally identify with that. It's like I go to the grocery store and I can't put my finger on what I'm feeling. I'm just a little bit anxious and, feeling a little bit of panic. And it's crazy. It's just weird. What will normal look like after this with regards to our businesses and our personal lives? And, I think a lot of people are talking about how long until this gets back to normal. It's this question we all have. When will this thing turn for the better and start us on track to getting back to normal? There was a podcast episode I was listening to the other night on the Tyler Stallman show, Tyler Stallman podcast. So definitely go check that out. He's a filmmaker and YouTube personality and puts out some really great content on, tech reviews and all that kind of stuff. But he was interviewing somebody. They were just talking about this idea of normal and what can it ever happen again? And basically the conclusion that they came to in the conversation, which I agree with and I hadn't really thought through, is like there's just certain things that will never be the same now that this has happened. And some for the better and some not so much. But I think a few things that will change that are probably good. I think what's crazy about this is, for my generation at least, there hasn't really been anything that's hit us at this scale. Like there's things like 9/11 and there's been wars in my lifetime, but nothing that's had this equal effect, equal impact on the whole planet. And so I do think that, I keep picturing what my kids, like the conversation that I'll have with my kids when they're older and they're asking me things like, Dad, why do you do things like that? Or why are you so afraid of this? Or why? And there's going to be certain things where, just like our great grandparents or whatever may have been impacted by one of the world wars or whatever. And so they have a certain chip on their shoulder or a certain way that they do life because of this impactful, and I'm not comparing this pandemic to a world war, of course, but I just mean these huge global happenings that affect everybody. I think that it'll leave a mark on us for the rest of our lives. And I hope that it will cause a lot of us to be a bit more careful, a bit more frugal, maybe a bit conservative. And I mean, to a certain extent, I think that there's going to be a lot less waste in our lifetime after this. And, financially, resourcefully, I hope that there's going to be certain things that we did before that may have been a waste of time or a waste of resources that now we just don't do because what if this happens again? And, like one of those things I think on a practical scale is like some of the outrageous VC funding world stuff. Obviously, like, I'm not gonna bash any of that. I just think that, like, VC funding is right for some people and not for others. But I do think that there's this kind of mentality or philosophy that has been grouped with it, grouped with that kind of VC funding route, that is like, spend a bunch of money and hire a bunch of people and do a bunch of marketing and stuff for a product that hasn't been built yet or isn't making any revenue. And that's the part I think that will have to shift with regards to business, is like, there's a lot of companies that did that are now having to lay off a bunch of people at a time where it's not the easiest to get jobs. Now, I'm not experiencing that, and so I don't really know how hard it is right now. Maybe there are a lot of opportunities, because there are companies out there that are doing actually better during this season, during this pandemic, like Zoom and Zoom, of course, Zoom, because it's everywhere. It's in the news. It's people that I didn't even knew what video chat was, or messaging me and being like, hey, should we jump on a Zoom call? I'm like, that there's like a ton of other ways to do a video call. But anyways, so there are other businesses that are doing really well right now. So maybe there is job opportunities, but regardless, I think that people will be a bit more careful moving forward. I really appreciate. I don't know if you listen to the show Made with Grit, but you should. So definitely go subscribe. But it's a podcast that is hosted by the founders of the company that I work at, which is Ad Reform, or User Feed. And I was just editing, so my business, Podmelon, my podcast editing business, edits their podcasts, but I also run User Feed as head of product, which is their business. Anyways, if you've listened to the last few episodes, that'll make sense. But they just released an episode and they were talking about how grateful they are to have been conservative to this point. And when so many other people told them that they were crazy for not dumping a bunch more money into the business and hiring a bunch more people, they're just happy that they didn't. They grew the company slowly, and they're in a really good place right now because of it, when a lot of other companies are not doing very well right now. And I think, and obviously this is an extreme case, and hopefully this never happens again, in general, never mind just in our lifetime. But this is why you run a business conservatively and you live with a bit of caution and frugality, is for these kinds of things. And so anyways, for better or for worse, I think that a lot of businesses are going to do things differently. I know personally, I didn't have a bunch of money saved for emergencies, and this hit, and it's like, now I'm kind of scrambling to just put something away, and I want to help the people around me and my family, but I have to take care of my kids and my wife first and make sure that we're set up for who knows how long. So anyways, I think that that's definitely impacted me. And on the other side of this, it's been amazing seeing the way that this has brought our planet together. And I always think about, this is me nerding out a little, but I always think about, like, what would happen if aliens attacked. Even if it was just like aliens just showed up on the scene, we would all of a sudden become this one race of humans that it's like, we have to look out for each other. That's kind of what's happened with this pandemic. It's like looking at the media and like videos online and stuff, how people are, downtown Vancouver, once a day, everybody's getting on their balconies and cheering for the healthcare workers. And it's like, there's this unity that's formed through this thing because we are all in this together. And it's amazing. And I think that that's another thing that will stick with this generation. Anyone that's alive today that will remember this will have this connection to the people in their neighborhood and the people to everyone. That's like, we went through this together, and we've been there. We knew what it was like. And for the rest of my life, I'll be able to get in a conversation with somebody and be like, hey, were you there for the pandemic in 2020? How did it affect you? And this is what happened to me. And, there's this thing that connects all of us, and it's awful, and it's scary, and I want it to end. But on the bright side here, it's this amazing thing that happens when we all go through something like this together and come out the other side. So wrapping this up, like I said, a little bit of therapy for me, but that's kind of what this podcast has been about from the beginning anyways. Wrapping this up, I think it's important that for those of us and those of you that are listening that are able to help people around you, be aware of how you can do that. And that might not be financially. One of the stores, the storefronts in our area posted the other day just apologizing to their followers and saying like, listen, we're so sorry. We're going to get delivery set up, online orders set up, but we're just not tech savvy. And so we're trying to figure it out. And it just made me think like, I need to reach out to them because it would take me 10 minutes to get them set up with something, because I know that stuff and I don't even need to write software for it. There are tons of tools that exist, but a lot of people just don't know about them. So if there's somebody in your sphere of influence that you could help out, because if you're listening to this, you probably are tech savvy. That is one way that we can contribute and one way that we can help. So anyways, it's just a thought. Hope you're safe, hope you're healthy, and hopefully in a couple more episodes, we won't be talking about this anymore and we'll be moving on to better things. So, see ya.